About the robbery incident, I have something to ask your father. A robbery? My father? Yes, your father is suspected of the robbery. Is he at home now? Yes, he's here, but do you want to see him? The police officer looked puzzled at my tone for a moment, but then said, please let me see him, so I led the police officer inside the house. My father is here. Upon seeing my father, the police officer was stunned. We go back several months. My name is Joseph McCann, a senior. I have landed a job at a major corporation and I would like to say I'm relieved. But there's something I'm still unsure about. It's whether or not I should take over the company my father runs. My father is a president of a local factory. When I was young, I wanted to inherit the local factory and become a president like my father. But those feelings disappeared when I hit my rebellious period. I began to feel embarrassed about my father always in work clothes and covered in grease. That feeling hasn't changed even into adolescence, and now it lingers somewhere in my heart. Having grown up and knowing the hardships of work through part-time jobs, I did develop respect for my father who carries the lives of many employees and their families, but I couldn't shake the thought that an office worker in a suit might be cooler. One day while shopping with my father, we were suddenly called from behind, "Aston!" And both my father and I turned around. The man there appeared to be the same age as my father. "Duncan, it's been a long time." This Duncan seemed to be my father's high school classmate. Dressed in a suit, Duncan was apparently out on sales calls. After revealing that he worked for a famous major corporation, Duncan asked my father, "So, you took over the family business?" "Yes, that's right. I'm still making it work somehow." "That filthy little local factory, right? Becoming the boss of a place like that and with only a high school diploma? You really have sunk low, haven't you?" I was stunned by Duncan's words. That local factory was started by my grandfather and my father was a second generation. I knew he took over after high school, but I never thought I would have a classmate who would mock it. Duncan continued, smiling silently at my father. "So, did you manage to grow your father's local factory? Weren't you saying you were going to take over the company in high school and make it big?" No, unfortunately, it seems I didn't have the business sense. That dream never came true." "Well, that's just like you. You were skilled with your hands, but not smart in the head. But at least you didn't ruin the company, right? I thought someone like you would have run it into the ground." Duncan, laughing heartily, slapped my father's shoulder and said, "I have to get back to work. I'll see you at the next reunion." Then he left. My father, who had been berated, seemed a bit awkward and said, "Well, shall we go?" and started walking to resume shopping. At that moment, I felt that my father's work, which had just been belittled without any rebuttal from me, was something to be ridiculed. The choice of taking over my father's company or getting a job at a major well-known company titled heavily towards joining the big corporation. A few weeks later, my father's reunion was held. Coincidentally, the venue was the restaurant where I work part-time. It was a busy day, and I didn't have a chance to serve food or drinks to the table where my father's reunion was taking place. I thought I was lucky, but after a while, the opportunity arose. I felt a little embarrassed to bring drinks to my father's reunion, but since it was my job, I did so without saying anything. Our restaurant consists entirely of private booths. When I popped my head into the large room rented out for my father's reunion, my father, who was near the entrance, greeted me with a smile, saying, "Oh, Joseph." "Could he be your son?" a woman nearby asked. My dad introduced me as his son, so I politely greeted, "My father is in your care," and lined up the drinks I brought on the table. With remarks from Dad's inebriated classmates about how my eyes resembled my father's or how serious I am like him, I awkwardly laughed. Then from a distance, Duncan noticed us and said, "We met just the other day." "Joseph, was it? Planning to take over Aston's local factory?" At Duncan's boozy question, I replied with disgust yet honesty, "No, I'm still considering it." And Duncan loudly exclaimed, "Don't do it. Aston's company is nothing great. Rather than taking over a company like that, Joseph should work in a company just like me." Saying this, Duncan began bragging about his work history, but something was off.
He had said he was in sales when we last met, but now he was talking about being a head of the accounting department. I felt a dissonance but kept quiet, knowing that pointing it out might cause trouble. But my drunk father's mouth was loose.
It hasn't been long since we last met. Did you change departments? It's only been a few weeks since we bumped into each other. Quite a hasty transfer, huh? Sales didn't suit you?
At my father's words, Duncan's usually chatty mouth stopped. A flustered Duncan nodded, saying,
Yes, a dirty job like sales didn't suit me. I became head of the accounting department as soon as I transferred.
That's strange. I heard that company was merged with a global enterprise and the accounting base is overseas, isn't it? As my father pointed out, Duncan's bragged about company had been merged into a global corporation. It seemed many others knew this but hadn't said anything, and laughter erupted at my father's comment.
Hey Duncan, what's going on? You're the head of accounting at a merged place? Shut up. I can't stay at this gathering.
Embarrassed, Duncan trembled with frustration and announced, "I'm leaving." Then he stomped out, leaving with loud footsteps.
I wonder if I did something wrong,
the father said. But the people around assured him that it wasn't the case and that Duncan had always been like that. Watching my father being praised for speaking his mind, I felt happy. Even though he was a bit tipsy, my dad had the guts to say what everyone else found hard to put into words. He was quite impressive. Half a year passed from that day. I was still struggling with whether or not to take over my father's company. The uncertainty deepened daily, and honestly, I was so confused that I didn't know what to do. Then one day, while relaxing at home, the doorbell rang. My mother was out, so I answered it.
Yes? Hello, you're Mr. McKen, right?
The visitor was a police officer in uniform. Startled, I replied in a tense voice, yes? As I began to worry about what might have happened, the police officer said,
I have some questions for your father about a robbery. A robbery? My father? Yes, that's right. Your father is suspected of robbery. Is he at home now? Yes, he is here, but do you want to see him?
From my tone, the police officer looked puzzled for a moment but said,
please let me see him. Here is my father.
What was there was an altar and my father's photograph. I then told the stunned police officer that my father had passed away in traffic accident.
I'm sorry for your loss,
the police officer said, and I asked him, my father was not a person who would rob anyone. Who is suspecting my father of being a robber?
I cannot share that personal information. I truly apologize for today's intrusion.
After apologizing repeatedly, the police officer left. Who on earth had accused my father of robbery? I was feeling frustrated, but the answer was soon revealed. A few days later, I was helping out at my father's local factory, taking over the role since he had passed away. My mother has been filling in for my father, but she's already in her 50s, and she had only assisted my father a little in his work. It didn't feel enough to replace my father, so I was the one helping. That's when Duncan barged in.
Aston, come out. Return what you stole.
The factory was filled with the loud noise of heavy machinery, but Duncan shouted over it with a voice so loud that I was taken aback, and I wasn't the only one. The other workers stopped in surprise, and I spoke to Duncan.
My father isn't here. Then, he's home? Call him right here. I've been robbed and I'm in trouble.
I could hear a voice from among the workers asking robbed the boss, but Duncan crossed his arms and stood firm. He was angrily repeating,
bring out Aston.
So I asked him, my father is not the kind of person who would rob someone.
Are you sure you're not mistaken? No, it was Aston. Aston must have been jealous of me working for a big company and stole my bag. Luckily, I didn't have my wallet with me, but the fact that he robbed me is unforgivable. The police are useless, so I came here myself. Let me talk to Aston.
When did this robbery happen, by the way?
It was about 2 weeks ago.
The workers began to murmur at Duncan's answer, which he gave after some hesitation. He seemed confused by the commotion. When I asked Duncan,
so it was really 2 weeks ago?
He seemed to lose his temper at my persistence.
He started yelling, what's going on? Why do you keep checking? I told you it was 2 weeks ago. I, an elite, came all the way to this small, greasy local factory. Let me see Aston now.
I felt a surge of heat in my chest at Duncan's commotion. It was unbearable to hear Duncan denigrate my father's work and the work of his employees at my father's workplace. But the worst part was trying to pin the crime of robbery on my father. My father died in a traffic accident a month ago, so he cannot be here. When I told him this, Duncan's face showed surprise and he said, "What?" I continued, "How could my father, who died a month ago, rob anyone? Are you sure you were really robbed?" I knew Duncan was a liar, and that came to light at the recent class reunion. I later found out from my father's classmates that Duncan had been a liar since his student days. Furthermore, a girl Duncan liked had a crush on my father, and it seems that Duncan has harbored a pointless rivalry with my father since those days. I couldn't forgive Duncan, who was trying to pin a crime on my father out of such a silly rivalry. So you're saying that he was robbed a month ago? He must have committed a robbery just before he died, right? Just as I was about to yell at Duncan, who was still persisting, I heard a shout from another direction. "The boss would never do such a thing. The boss is a very serious person." That's right. The reason we are always short-staffed is that the boss teaches us skills and that encourages us to be independent. He's always thinking about his employees and clients, never about profits. He was a good person. As Duncan faltered, praise from my father came one after another. I was sincerely moved. I felt ashamed of myself for ever thinking that my father's work was embarrassing. My father was a boss who was respected by his employees and loved enough to be defended even in this situation. Duncan's eyes filled with tears as voices defending my father rose from the factory. I delivered the final blow. "I will definitely consult the police about you trying to pin a false charge on my father." With that, Duncan let out a cry and ran out of the factory. After that, I went to the police to consult them about my father being framed by Duncan just as I had declared. The evidence was Duncan's statement, which had been recorded on a mobile phone by one of the employees who thoughtfully did it for us. Thanks to one of the employees recording the argument, there was evidence left. The police acted quickly since there was evidence, and Duncan was caught in no time. Duncan's act of framing someone with a false charge became his crime, and he seems to be behind bars for a while. He mocked my father while he was alive and tried to pin a crime of him even after he was gone. I felt a sense of relief, thinking he deserved to suffer. A few days later, a woman claiming to be Duncan's wife came to apologize to my mother and me. When I asked if Duncan's attempt to frame my father was due to what happened at the reunion, Duncan's wife sighed and told me, "That's right, it seems like something that hit a sore spot at the reunion was the cause. In fact, Duncan was a former high flyer and it appeared that he had been fired from his job. He was looking for new employment but without success, and that's when he ran into me and my father. Duncan was fixated on being an elite and told lies, but when he got drunk, he ended up telling inconsistent lies, embarrassing himself. Enraged, Duncan began to resent my father, deciding to frame him. I was utterly dumbfounded by the outrageous reasons for the lies, and it seems Duncan's wife felt the same way. She informed me that she plans to divorce Duncan. Apparently, Duncan has no children, so even if he gets out of jail, there won't be anyone waiting for him. After graduating college, as for what I did, I decided to take over my father's company. I was concerned about the company's management since my father had just passed away. But I could never forget the voices of the employees who defended my father when Duncan framed him with lies. I wanted to become a boss who is loved and respected by the employees, and that incident made me feel that way from the bottom of my heart. I was part of the business school, so I can handle the management part that my father was weak at. But I need the staff to teach me about the technology. The staff say, "We'll teach you anything for the boss's son," and they're always ready to help me. They also share a lot of memories about my father, making me realize his greatness every time. "Dad, you were really an amazing person. I'm ashamed. I didn't realize it while you were alive. I'm truly sorry." I talked to his picture. "I'm covered in oil stains after work. I'm ashamed of myself for thinking this was uncool. These stains were evidence of how hard my father had worked." "I'll work hard to become a boss like you, Dad. I'll make sure to fulfill your dream." I talked to his picture, and it seems like my father is smiling back. I intend to work my hardest to become a boss like my father. I want to fulfill my father's dream of expanding our local factory, which has been in our family since my grandfather's time.
Do you know someone like this? A woman who says things they don't really feel when she's around a man she likes or someone she wants to flatter. A phony woman. While it might be a way to show affection, it's a different story if she changes her attitude based on the other person. Phony girls always end up causing harm to someone behind the scenes. I'm going to share a story about when I was on the other end of this behavior. My name is Flora. 7 years ago, I was in a 3-year relationship with a guy named Daniel, and we were planning on getting married in the fall. Around that time, we found out that his older brother was also planning to get married. It's great to have 2 happy events happening at the same time, but considering the financial burden on the invited guests, we thought it might be better to avoid having them at the same time. So we had a discussion, and we decided that the older brother would have his wedding first. That's when Nina, his wife, became my sister-in-law. I'm 2 years younger than her. She was very kind and treated me like a sister. I thought we'd get along well as sisters-in-law, but her attitude changed completely 6 months after her wedding. It was the day we came back from our honeymoon. "Grandma, Daniel and Flora are back from their trip," my mother-in-law said loudly. Daniel's 80-year-old grandmother, who lives with my in-laws, came out of the back room. "Daniel, Flora, welcome back. I brought you the toffee you like." When I handed my foodie grandmother-in-law her gift, she smiled happily. "Daniel, you've really got yourself a great wife. She even considered me during the wedding ceremony. It was an intimate ceremony with just family, and even the meal was Japanese cuisine. That's rare for young people these days." It was my sister-in-law, Nina. "Oh, you all look like you're having a good time together. Nina, you came just in time. Daniel and Flora brought us some toffee from their honeymoon. Join us." My mother-in-law invited her, but Nina replied, "I'll pass this time. I just came to drop off the invitations for your birthday party, mother-in-law. Well, I have some things to do, so I'm gonna take off." Then she walked out the front door. I followed her. "Here's a souvenir. It's not much." As I handed her a paper bag with sweets, she peeked inside and laughed. "It looks like something you could buy at any train station, huh?" I'm sorry. "And Flora, from now on, could you stop calling me by my first name? You're married now, so you should understand, right?" Yes. Today's Nina, who used to call me by my first name or a nickname, now addressed me more formally, and her words and tone seemed harsh. What could have happened? I wondered if I had done something to upset her, but I couldn't think of anything. Maybe she was just in a bad mood. I was left with an uneasy feeling. At the restaurant my sister-in-law had booked for my mother-in-law's birthday celebration, my in-laws and Nina were waiting. I was about to ask why my grandmother-in-law wasn't there, but my sister-in-law said, "Now that everyone's here, father-in-law, could you please say a few words for the toast?" We finished the main course of the meal, and just as we were about to have dessert, my sister-in-law said, "Mother-in-law, this is a birthday present from Ty and me." When my mother-in-law opened the box my sister-in-law handed her, it revealed a high-end bag. "Oh my, can I really accept such an expensive gift? We chose it because we thought it would be perfect for a fashionable mother-in-law like you." Nina had also given my father-in-law a watch for his birthday 3 months earlier. Seeing my mother-in-law happy, my sister-in-law looked at me with satisfaction. "Flora, you have something too, right?" Yes, I'm not sure how to follow that, but As my mother-in-law unwrapped the package I handed her, she said, "Oh, how lovely! Did you make this, Flora?" Yes, I enjoy sewing." I had given her a handmade apron. I remember my mother-in-law saying before, "I wonder if there were more fashionable aprons out there." So I made one to suit her taste. "Thank you. This is exactly what I wanted. And it's even more special that you made it for me." My mother-in-law was delighted. My sister-in-law, who had been nodding along to the conversation, smiled and said, "Flora, you're really skillful with your hands. I'm jealous. Can you teach me sometime?" I had been worried about how my gift would go over, so I was relieved from hearing their words and went to the restroom. While washing my hands, I felt someone's gaze on me and looked up to see my sister-in-law glaring at me through the mirror, and I had a shocked expression on my face. "What's so surprising?" "I'm sorry, I didn't notice." "Hey, Flora, what's with that birthday present? Did you really think she would be happy with something like that? A handmade apron? It's so outdated, like something from a grade school economics class." She laughed, making fun of me while crossing her arms. "I feel like I'll catch your bad taste if I'm around you." With that, she pinched her nose and made a gesture to fan away the smell before leaving the restroom. From that point on, my sister-in-law would act completely different when we were alone, compared to when we were with family. My husband would just tell me not to worry about it and wouldn't take the issue seriously. Still, I continued to visit my in-laws' house to see my grandmother-in-law, who looked forward to my visits, and lately, I hadn't had any run-ins with my sister-in-law. Then, one day, I received a message from her after a long time. "I have something to tell you." When I went to my in-laws' house one day, my sister-in-law, who had come alone, was happily chatting with them. "Nina is pregnant! It's a boy!" my mother-in-law said joyfully. My in-laws already knew about my sister-in-law's pregnancy, but they had called us over so she could tell us. Feeling mixed emotions while my in-laws beamed with happiness, I pretended to make tea and went to the kitchen. Even so, I couldn't help but listen to the conversation in the living room. "Actually, there's something I'd like to ask," my sister-in-law said. "What is it? Don't be shy. Just say it." "Well, I talked to Ty about it, and we were wondering if we could live here with you after the baby is born. So here's a proposal. If the family grows, it might become a little cramped, so we would appreciate it if we could renovate the house, and of course we'll cover the expenses." She suggested this humbly. I felt that she might have had another motive. Unaware of this, my father-in-law said, "I appreciate the sentiment, but wouldn't we all end up being overly conscious of each other? You don't have to worry about us, but why don't you just build your own house? If it's about money, we'd be happy to help, right, honey?" "Yeah, that's right." Upon hearing my in-laws' words, my sister-in-law said, "Really? Are you sure? That's too bad. I was looking forward to living together." This was probably all part of her plan. My sister-in-law came over to me in the kitchen and said with a smug look, "Did you hear that? My father-in-law is going to give me the money for my own house." She casually revealed to me that she never had any intention of living with her in-laws from the start. "My future is secure now. I mean, I have a husband who works at a top-tier company, a new house, and a son on the way. Plus, I've got my in-laws on my side. You really picked the wrong person to mess with." "Excuse me?" "Being friends with that old woman won't get you anywhere." Unable to hold back any longer, I raised my voice. "Nina, that's completely inappropriate." "Shh, don't be so loud. Everyone will hear you." Then she whispered in my ear, God must be watching over me. After all, he made sure I, as the eldest son's wife, would have a child before you. I didn't immediately understand what my sister-in-law meant, but then I realized something. How did she know about it? Only my husband and grandmother-in-law should have known. Suddenly, my grandmother-in-law walked up. "What are you two talking about?" "Oh, it's nothing," my sister-in-law replied with a fake smile before quickly returning to the living room. "Flora, would you like to have some tea in my room?" Once inside, my grandmother-in-law checked again to make sure no one was outside the room and said, "Flora, is Nina being mean to you?" My grandmother-in-law told me she had begun to notice my sister-in-law's true nature. When I told her that Nina knew about my miscarriage, she said, "She must have eavesdropped on our conversation in this room." I had planned to keep my pregnancy a secret for the first several weeks, only telling my husband and grandmother-in-law because I didn't know what my sister-in-law would do if she found out. Unfortunately, I ended up having a miscarriage. My sister-in-law had deliberately called us to our in-laws' house to announce her pregnancy. I couldn't help but think that she was mocking me. I can't forgive her. I decided to tell my elderly grandmother-in-law everything about my sister-in-law's behavior, which I hadn't mentioned before to avoid worrying her. My grandmother-in-law held my hand and said, "Don't worry, Flora. Leave it to this old lady." Several months later, my sister-in-law gave birth to a baby boy at a hospital near her parents' home. We gave her husband some money as a gift, but I separately sent a present to my sister-in-law's family home. Even though she should have gotten it by now, she never said anything. I decided to call my sister-in-law in front of my grandmother-in-law and parents-in-law. "What? You're asking for a thank you? Sending me such a cheap handmade baby outfit? How stingy can you be?" My sister-in-law started the conversation by ranting loudly. I put her on speaker. "I threw that thing in the trash already. Just send me a stroller instead." I waited for my sister-in-law to finish before revealing the truth. "Nina, did you check what was inside? That gift was from your father-in-law." "What?" "Yes, I made the baby outfit, but your father-in-law asked me to. Your parents-in-law embroidered your child's name on the chest of the outfit. I also mentioned that in the letter I included. Didn't you read it?" "What? Are you kidding?" My sister-in-law's confident tone gradually faded. "Flora, hold on a minute." I could hear voices in the background. "Mom, where did you put that bag I threw in the trash?" "What bag? What was in it?" "Ugh, just look next time." My sister-in-law and her mother's conversation was clearly audible, even though she probably thought she was covering the phone. "I'm sorry, Flora. There was a little misunderstanding." Suddenly, my sister-in-law's tone changed to a more humble one. "It seems my mom accidentally threw it away, mistaking it for trash. If our in-laws find out about this, they'll be upset." My sister-in-law made endless excuses and ultimately asked me to make the same baby outfit again. "Flora, I'm sorry for being so harsh before. I didn't mean anything by it. So please, just help me out this time." Nina, who has said many hurtful things to me, was now trying to butter me up. "All right, I'll do it just this once, considering your parents-in-law's feelings." I hung up the phone after saying that. Now, you see, that's her true nature. My grandmother-in-law, who had been listening nearby, said to my parents-in-law. Actually, before giving birth, my sister-in-law bailed on my grandmother-in-law's birthday party, claiming she was sick. My grandmother-in-law had told my parents-in-law and Ty about Nina's true colors. "I can't believe Nina would do such a thing." My parents-in-law, who had been skeptical, were now convinced after hearing the phone conversation. They were dumbfounded, having moved beyond anger, that the outfit made with love by the family had been thrown in the trash. The tables had turned. Unaware of the situation, my sister-in-law, Nina, came to our parents-in-law's house with her husband and their newborn child. We couldn't confront her when our in-laws were meeting their first grandchild for the first time, so Daniel and I greeted them with casual smiles. How adorable! I wonder if he has my mouth. His eyebrows are like mine. Watching my in-laws, who couldn't help but adore their grandchild, I thought that the phrase, "they wouldn't feel pain even if their eyes were poked," truly applied here. Thank you, everyone, for the lovely baby clothes. See, they fit perfectly. Nina wore a proud expression as she dressed the baby in the clothes I had remade. Yes, they do. Seeing the happy faces of the in-laws, Nina smiled at me. At that moment, something seems off, Mother-in-law said with a puzzled expression. What? These baby clothes, the embroidery wasn't this beautiful before, was it? Am I imagining things? She tilted her head. Oh no, it's always been this beautiful. I guess so. Nina laughed nervously, relieved that nothing came of it. Let me hold my great-grandchild. She reached to hold the baby. Don't touch the baby with your dirty hands! Nina brushed away great-grandmother's hand. It was a reflex. She disliked great-grandmother. Flustered that her actions showed her true nature, Nina said, I'm sorry, Grandma. I didn't mean it like that. Nina desperately tried to explain herself, but icy cold gazes were directed at her. Well, it doesn't matter. She laughed. You may try to keep up appearances, but sometimes your true colors show unexpectedly. Right, Nina? Huh? Oh no, did I let something slip? Nina was speechless at great-grandmother's response. Backed into a corner, Nina said, Great-grandma, can we have another birthday party for you? I couldn't attend the last one because I wasn't feeling well. Oh, there it is. Her signature about face. Would you prefer Japanese cuisine? I could make a reservation at a fancy restaurant. Nina asked, rubbing her hands together. No, I don't like eating out. I'd rather try some of your homemade cooking instead of a fancy feast. Huh? Is cooking not your strong suit, Nina? No, it's not like that. Of course I'll cook for you, she said confidently. But later, can you do me a favor? Nina called and asked me to help her cook. She must have assumed I'd bail her out like I did with the baby clothes, but things wouldn't go her way this time. I'm sorry, Nina, but no. Great-grandma has had my cooking and would know right away. Why didn't you just be honest if you can't cook? Huh? Maybe she didn't expect me to say that. She said, Fine, and hung up the phone. Later at great-grandmother's birthday party, there were fancy boxes of food lined up on the table. Did you make all this, Nina? Great-grandma asked with an innocent expression. Yes, I did. I'm not sure if you'll like it, though. Knowing Nina, she probably ordered high-end dishes from somewhere and just changed out the plates because she refused to admit that she can't cook. Relieved that she managed to avoid complete embarrassment, she showed a gift to her grandmother-in-law, saying, Grandma, this is just a small token, but I hope you like it and wear it. Oh, this looks like expensive clothing, but it's too fancy for me to wear. I feel bad, but can you return it to the store you bought it from? You don't like it? I can get something else. As Nina hesitated, grandmother-in-law said, Nina, would you like to live with us here? That would be the best present. It would mean I could enjoy your delicious cooking every day. Live together? I thought we agreed that we didn't have to do that. Right, father-in-law? Nina was visibly shaken by great-grandmother's unexpected request. It's just a thought. Besides, Nina, weren't you planning to live with us? Is there a problem? After about 10 seconds of silence, Nina opened her mouth. I'm sorry. The truth is, I can't cook at all. But I didn't want to tell you, so I ordered food. Well, if that's the case, you should have just told us the truth. Yes, I'm sorry. Nina apologized for the cooking issue and clearly wanted to slide past the topic of living together, but great-grandmother wasn't finished yet. Don't worry, I was just joking about us living together. What? It was just a joke? Nina's face looked relieved, but grandmother-in-law's attack was unexpected. Don't be so relieved just yet. Huh? I'd rather you not set foot in the house if you can't... What? Then Nina's usually quiet husband spoke up. Nina, apologize to Flora. Throwing away the clothes she made for the baby? That's a terrible thing to do. It was the first time I'd seen Ty angry. Apologize? I didn't do anything wrong. Nina still refused to acknowledge her actions. I had it. Nina, it's all out in the open. Should I show you? I showed her my smartphone. Here, I have all our conversations recorded. Want to hear? As I tried to press the button on my phone, Nina screamed, "Stop it!" and snatched it from my hand. Startled by her loud voice, the baby sleeping in the next room started to cry loudly. What do you want from me? I'm the one who wants to cry. Really? Now Nina was crying too. Everyone was taken aback. Nina, cut it out. Aren't you embarrassed acting like a child? Just get out. The room got quiet. Nina had nothing to say. She slightly nodded at me and left the house. The consequences of being two-faced caught up to Nina as her husband gave up on her. Later, Ty told Nina that he wanted a divorce. Nina had no job or savings. She demanded alimony in exchange for giving him custody of their child. But Nina's parents were reasonable and apologized for their daughter's actions. They offered to pay the alimony themselves. Nina, who moved back in with her parents, sent Ty messages complaining about living with her stubborn sister-in-law and how unbearable it was. Nina didn't care about her child at all. Ty was fed up and said, "You brought this on yourself," and he blocked her. After the divorce, Ty remarried and lived with his son in his parents' home. Please call me Anna. You don't have to call me sister-in-law. Anna, who was a year older, was very kind and cheerful, and the baby quickly warmed up to her. Thanks to the in-laws, the family of 3 now lives in an apartment near their house. My husband and I, blessed with 2 daughters, moved into the in-laws' house when Ty and his family moved out. The in-laws love watching their grandchildren grow up. Grandmother named our 2 daughters. My name, Flora, means flower, so she chose the names Lily and Jasmine. The girls call my grandmother-in-law Gigi. She will celebrate her 88th birthday this year. Today, she sits on the porch watching her great-grandchildren play in the sandbox. Gigi, here's some toffee. When the girls offer her balls of mud, she laughs and says, "Thank you, it's delicious." As I watch this adorable exchange from a distance, I whisper, "Gigi, please live a long life and watch over our children as they grow up."
Living off my son's money, and you have the nerve to be rude. I don't even want to speak to you. That's how my mother-in-law, Catherine, yelled at me. After that, she truly started ignoring me. Before I knew it, I had been on the receiving end of her silent treatment for 3 months. To make matters worse, Catherine and my husband did something unthinkable. Huh? The key doesn't work. Turns out they changed the locks on our home without telling me. Fed up, I secretly sold the house and decided to move. My name is Karen, a 29-year-old office worker. I've been married to John for 2 years. We met at a party. We both attended a party thrown by a mutual friend. John is 3 years older than me and works for a conventional company. He's in sales, really good at talking, and pretty entertaining. He seemed to take a liking to me and asked for my contact info, and soon we started seeing each other. He was incredibly fun to be around, and I found myself increasingly attracted to him. After a while, he confessed his feelings, and we became a couple. We dated smoothly for about 1.5 years before he proposed. I can't imagine a life without you, Karen. Will you marry me? He popped the question at a fancy restaurant with a beautiful night view, offering me a ring. Even if it was cliché, I loved it and immediately said yes. And so we got married. We had our family meeting, went through our ceremony, and everything was perfect. Many of our coworkers and friends attended the wedding, making it a really happy occasion. After our honeymoon, we started living together. Both of us work, so we split household chores to balance our responsibilities. John used to live at home and had helped Catherine with cooking, so he was good at household tasks. Moreover, he's an excellent cook, and his homemade meals are delicious. On days off, we go out on dates and spend a lot of wonderful time together. I truly believe I'm lucky to have married him. 2 years into our marriage, we're still madly in love and living a happy life. But that doesn't mean everything is perfect. The problem is Catherine. From the first time we met, she seemed cold toward me. The issue apparently was my educational background. Oh, you graduated from a rather low-level college. I can't trust people who didn't work hard in school. That's how Catherine belittled me. Sure, my college wasn't top tier, but I chose it not for its prestige, but for the courses it offered that I was interested in. I don't judge people based on their educational level, and frankly, I think it's irrelevant once you're out in the real world. So I was shocked when Catherine mocked me for my education. The tension was palpable during our family meeting, and my husband looked noticeably uncomfortable. I had my reservations about Catherine before we got married, but I loved him, so I went ahead with it. Catherine lost her husband a few years back and now lives alone in her in-laws' house. As a result, she'd often visit us. And every time she did, she would have something to complain about to me. You really suck at cleaning. I can't deal with sloppy people. Make sure you clean every nook and cranny. My husband was the one who had cleaned the day before Catherine arrived, but something told me it'd be awkward to say that, so I kept quiet. I'd just apologize and wait for the storm to pass. However, Catherine kept coming over and berating me. You're uneducated, can't do household chores, and you don't even have kids. Seriously, you have nothing going on for you. How did you even manage to get with John? Her words were a real blow, especially when I was already feeling down. Finally, I'd had enough and talked to my husband about it. Can't we do something about Catherine's attitude toward me? What do you mean, her attitude? She's constantly insulting me. Really? I never noticed. I was taken aback by that. My husband didn't think her comments were derogatory. Learning this shocking fact in our 2nd year of marriage left me stunned. Are you serious? Are you? I don't think Mom intends to be mean. I started to wonder if my own perceptions were warped. Am I not normal? No, it wasn't me. It was my husband and Catherine who were both out of touch. That thought festered, along with my growing distrust for my husband. I had sensed hints of his mommy issues for a while. It had never been a problem until now. His mommy issues started causing me real concern. Mom says you should cook more nutritious meals, so can you add more variety to the menu? We both work, you know. I can't make elaborate meals all the time. A wife's cooking can motivate a husband to work harder and succeed, so please make more dishes. I think you've been skimping. Fine. I reluctantly expanded the menu, which did make dinner prep more labor-intensive. But what really got to me was when Catherine found out my husband was also contributing to the housework. How dare you make John do household chores? A wife should never do that. Stop it right now. Catherine yells at me like that. I couldn't just take it anymore. My husband and I both work, so it only makes sense to share the chores. You, my daughter-in-law, dare to have an opinion about me? Unbelievable. This is why I can't stand people without a proper education. What I'm saying has nothing to do with education. In fact, I think my view is more relevant to modern times. Your perspective, Catherine, is outdated. Upon hearing me call her views outdated, Catherine's face turned beet red. Enough! Stop making fun of me. I won't tolerate this. Catherine then ran to my husband to tattle on me. My husband, furious, called me over. Hey, Mom is really upset. Why are you messing with her? It's your mom who's causing trouble, not me. I tried to explain my side of the story, but my husband made a shocking statement. It's all your fault, isn't it, Karen? Wait. Were you listening? He shot me a glare. Then my husband glared at me with a disgusted look on his face. What's with that attitude? You've become so disrespectful. Just like Mom said, it's not right for a wife to act like this. Really? Now even my husband is saying this. I was truly disheartened. I thought my husband had different values than Catherine, but he seemed to be heavily influenced by her. Can I really continue this marriage and be happy? I was at a loss, drowning in uncertainty, when my husband made another unbelievable comment. Mom is moving in with us. I asked when she would come, wondering if she would come again. Starting tomorrow. I felt uneasy with the phrase starting tomorrow. What do you mean starting tomorrow? Isn't it just for tomorrow? When I asked with a sense of dread, my husband replied, We're having my mom move in with us starting tomorrow. Move in? I could barely believe my ears. Why is this suddenly about living together? My mom says it's a hassle to keep coming over here all the time, so we figured she might as well move in. What? Why would you decide that without discussing it with me? I'm the breadwinner here. It's my call. It was more obvious that my husband was completely swayed by his mother, Catherine. She must be telling him a wife should obey her husband. But making a unilateral decision to live with Catherine is unacceptable. The next day, Catherine arrived as if it was the most natural thing, lugging huge bags with her. She boldly took over a room on the first floor, acting as if she had been living here all along. Karen, get the coffee going, will you? You're such an inconsiderate daughter-in-law. Hey, Mom's tired from moving. Get it together. Catherine and my husband immediately started to berate me. The thought of this happening every day was unbearable. I started making preparations for any unforeseen circumstances. Catherine continued to boss me around. But at the time, I was immersed in a significant work project and wanted to focus. So I just ignored whatever Catherine or my husband said. Why are you coming home so late? It's Karen's job to make dinner. Why are you making us wait? I had to work late. You two seem to have eaten already. What's the problem? When I said that, both my husband and Catherine glared at me, their faces red with anger. It's infuriating, living off my son's money, and you dare talk back. I don't even want to speak to you. Catherine yelled. What on earth is she talking about? I'm not living off my husband's money. Actually, I earn more than he does. But Catherine seemed to be under some sort of misconception, and she actually started ignoring me. Whether I greeted her or had a question, she ignored me. My husband started to join her in ignoring me. Before I knew it, I had been ignored for 3 months. I was busy with a work project and actually found their non-interference relaxing. Who knew being left alone could feel so good? They both looked at me with smug smiles, thinking they were hurting me by ignoring me. I saw no harm in letting them believe that, even making a show of being subdued and downcast. But as my project reached its climax, I had to work even more overtime. And working together as a team, we finally completed the project. Towards the end, I was so focused that I had completely forgotten about Catherine and my husband. I guess I was so out of it that even if I was being ignored, I wouldn't have noticed. But at some point, Catherine and my husband realized I wasn't affected at all. And then they did something unthinkable. My key's not working. No matter how many times I tried, the key I had wouldn't fit into the lock. Turns out, they'd changed the locks without telling me. As I was desperately trying to get in, I heard Catherine and my husband talking inside. "Is that a burglar? Ha ha ha! But we're home alone, so it can't be a break-in, right? Maybe it's trespassing." "Yeah, maybe we should call the cops." They were loudly laughing and talking. I couldn't believe it. They had taken it this far. That was the last straw. I secretly decided to sell the house and move. Actually, this house was a family home my parents had left to me when they retired to the countryside last year. So I had every right to sell it. And I'd already had it appraised, just in case something tricky happened with Catherine living here. So I could sell it right away. I stayed in a business hotel and informed my parents of the situation and my plan to sell. They were so disappointed in my husband and Catherine that they gave me the go-ahead. So I immediately contacted a real estate agent and sold the house. I had a locksmith come and unlock the door for me. When I entered, Catherine looked at me, startled. "How were you able to get in? You didn't break the lock, did you?" It was Catherine's voice, one I never wanted to hear again. Ignoring her yells, I started packing my stuff. "Hey, say something. I'll call the police for trespassing." I continued with my plans to leave without paying her any mind. I had also brought movers with me, so they started taking away my large items. Catherine kept shouting things like, "You think you can get away with this, thief?" But I kept ignoring her. The locksmiths and movers looked uncomfortable around Catherine. That's because I had told them she was the mother of my dementia-stricken husband and had changed the locks, mistaking my home for her own. The more she screamed, the more it looked like her condition was severe. I held back laughter and proceeded with the move efficiently. In no time, all my stuff was gone. I left the already filled-out divorce papers on the table and walked out. Catherine was yelling something, but I ignored her and left. Let her taste the bitterness of being completely ignored. My husband called me that night, extremely angry. "Hey, what do you think you're doing? Stealing from this house?" I decided to engage my husband in a meaningful conversation. "What are you talking about? I've only taken what I bought with my own money. And speaking of which, remember the house itself was passed down to me from my parents. You've been so busy impressing Catherine that you've started to believe your own lies." "Ah." My husband seemed to finally remember after hearing me out. His phone was on speaker, so I also heard Catherine's voice chime in. "Wait, what's going on?" Good if Catherine is listening. That makes things easier. "Catherine, since you're listening, perfect. I've already sold the house, so please leave immediately. Also, sign the divorce papers. If you don't agree to the divorce, I'll take this to court." Both of them were speechless at my statement. "What's the matter? Giving me the silent treatment again?" "I don't mind, but just so you know, I will kick you out without any hesitation." I knew they weren't really ignoring me. They were just at a loss for words, but I said it anyway. As expected, my husband finally said, "Wait, please." But I ignored him and hung up. Shortly after, I initiated divorce proceedings through my lawyer. My husband quickly agreed to the divorce, likely out of fear of a court battle. Subsequently, both my ex-husband and Catherine were evicted. Though they could have afforded a decent apartment with the money from the house sale and some pensions, it turns out Catherine had been wasting money and had paid off her debts with my father-in-law's inheritance. Apparently, she continued her spendthrift ways, making my ex-husband think he could afford to buy a house. Now he's struggling, trying to pay off the debt Catherine accrued. Despite the long-winded explanation and his plea to get back together, I have completely ignored him. Now I live alone in a comfortable apartment. I plan to save the money from the house sale for my retirement. For now, I'm done with love. I'll focus on my career and work towards getting a promotion.
What's this? It's divorce papers. Remember I said I had a surprise for you? Consider it a retirement gift from me. Oh, by the way, that money is a settlement. You can't be serious. My name is Susan. I just turned 60 and recently retired as a part-time housewife. I live with my husband Russ and we have 2 adult kids, Tom and Emily, each walking their own path. Tom is married and lives with his wife, Courtney. Emily is also married and has grandchildren, but she and her husband moved to a distant city due to his job transfer. We don't see Emily's family much anymore, but they seem to be doing well when we catch up over the phone. Maybe it's my age, but lately, I've been reminiscing a lot. Life was a whirlwind, to say the least. I met Russ through an arranged date. I wasn't unlucky in love or anything, but I had a fear of men. My first boyfriend, after starting my job, cheated on me. He was the boss at my company. I ended up having an affair with him, someone who was an admired figure to us new hires. Eventually, he betrayed me. And when I tried to talk about it, he threatened to ruin my life. That experience gave me a fear of men. That's when I met Russ. Russ's mother and my mom were childhood friends, and they were very close. I wasn't too keen on the idea, but Mom insisted, so I gave in. Russ was neither handsome nor particularly sociable. He seemed like the type women wouldn't usually go for, but maybe that's why I could open up to him. Over time, I found myself looking into his eyes when we talked. I found myself slowly falling for Russ. So we started dating and got married a year later. Tom was born the following year and Emily came the next. Life was hectic, but I remember it being lively and happy. However, when Tom was in 7th grade, something happened. Russ was hardly home. When he was always on his phone. I felt suspicious. I grabbed his phone when he wasn't looking and saw pictures of a woman and their conversations. Yes, Russ was having an affair. Before I could say anything, Russ spoke. "Susan, I'm sorry." Sorry doesn't cut it. Do you know how I feel right now? I thought you were different. My feelings were a mix of anger, hatred, and sadness, and I didn't know what to do. Just go, Russ. It's not what you think. I love you, Susan. How can you say that now? You betrayed me. I'm truly sorry. I'll cut ties with her and change my ways. And you think I'll believe that? I get that you can't trust me now, but I'll do everything I can to make you believe that I've changed. Don't leave me, Susan. I need you. If he needed me, why did he betray me? Although I was unsettled, I found myself saying, "Fine, but there won't be a next time." "Susan, thank you." And just like that, I put a close to a big chapter in our family's life. Don't get me wrong, it's not like I've forgiven Russ or trust his words again, but if I divorced him now, it would mean taking the kids' dad away from them. The first thought that came to mind was how unfair it would be for them to grow up with a single mom. So for me, divorce wasn't an option. Truth be told, I still have feelings for Russ. Being cheated on sucks, but I find myself wanting to be with him. After that, Russ seemed like a changed man. He comes home early every day and actually spends time with the kids. It seems he's really turned a new leaf. And so, life went on smoothly. The kids grew up strong, became adults, and started lives of their own. And they eventually moved out of our home. With the kids gone, it's just me and Russ. We've been so consumed with parenting that it feels strangely lonely now. But just the 2 of us makes it feel like the early days of marriage, a bit embarrassing even. So we've been enjoying quality time as a couple, thriving both at work and off hours. And next month, I'll be turning 60. Lost in thought, the phone rings. Hi. Hey, Mom, you free next Sunday? I am. What's up? You sound serious. Well, you're hitting 60, right? I wanted to do something nice for you while I can. How about we celebrate your retirement with a nice dinner somewhere? What a wonderful son I have. I'm so touched I could cry. Thank you. I'll let Russ know. I'll tell Dad. You and Dad just come as you are. We live in the same house, you know, but okay, looking forward to it. And so I hung up. That night I talked to Russ about next Sunday. Russ, you heard about next Sunday? Yeah, our son's throwing us a retirement celebration. He's something, isn't he? Thanks to you, Susan. It's not just me. He's your son, too. Thank you. And get this, he's planning a surprise, too. Really? He didn't mention that. Can't wait. Yeah, me too. Finally, the awaited Sunday comes. Russ and I arrive at the agreed-upon restaurant. Tom and his wife, Courtney, had arrived before us. As we enter the restaurant and head towards the seat Tom mentioned over the phone, "Over here!" Tom waves enthusiastically. We exchange casual greetings with Courtney next to him. You guys are early? Yeah, had some preparations to make. We make small talk as the multi-course meal starts arriving. Let's dig in. Looks delicious. Tom dives into his meal with childlike enthusiasm. Shall we eat too, Russ? We all started eating. The food here was exceptionally delicious. Maybe it tasted even better because of the retirement party Tom had thrown for us. After we finished our meals, the atmosphere was calm again. I'm going to smoke a cigarette. With that, Russ stepped outside. Tom and his wife then approached us with envelopes in hand. Congratulations on your retirement. They handed over 2 envelopes. One had Emily's name on it, and the other had Tom's name. What's all this? One is from Emily and her husband, and the other is our gift to you, they explained. Russ had mentioned a surprise, but being there and actually receiving it moved me to tears. Thank you. Go ahead and see what's inside, Tom encouraged. I began by opening Emily's envelope. It contained $500 and a heartfelt letter. It expressed regret for not being able to attend in person and offered words of gratitude. I couldn't stop my tears. As a mother, nothing could be more rewarding than being celebrated by my own children. Actually, this is from your dad, Tom added. From Russ? Yeah, this restaurant is quite expensive, you see, so Dad said to use this money from him. It looks like he's also grateful to Mom. Really? I never thought Russ would still think of me like that. I went ahead and checked the other envelope. Inside were lots of bills and a letter. Upon counting, there was a whopping $2,000. It must have been hard for him to gather such an amount. I was about to read the letter from Russ, but what was inside wasn't a letter at all. I threw the envelope in front of Tom. Hey, Mom, that's harsh. We went through all this trouble. Harsh? Do you even know what's harsh? Look inside. Tom picked up the envelope and checked the contents. His eyes widened the moment he saw the paper inside. What is this? It wasn't a letter. It was divorce papers. Just then, Russ came back. What is the meaning of this? What do you mean? They're divorce papers. What are you thinking? I told you there was a surprise, right? This is my retirement gift to you. Oh, and that money is a settlement. You can't be serious. This is not a pleasant surprise at all. I've provided for you all this time. You have no reason to complain. I'm going to start a new life. Dad, that's too cruel. What have you been thinking about Mom and us? Of course, I still care about you guys, but I can't see Susan as a woman anymore. Just sign it and submit it to the court. Wait a minute. Ignoring everything else, Russ walked out of the restaurant as if he had no more business there. What a case of emotional abuse this was. Stunned, Tom apologized to me. Why are you the one apologizing? Well, I'm the one who suggested celebrating your retirement, and it turned into this mess. I wanted to make today special for Mom, and I ended up ruining it. Sorry. Don't worry about it, but what should we do now? As I pondered, Tom spoke again. Look, I don't want to bring this up at a time like this, but would you consider living with us? I don't think you should make such a decision so quickly just because of what happened today. No, Courtney and I have talked about it. We've always wanted to live with our parents someday. Courtney is on board too. Turning to Courtney, I saw her smiling and nodding. What a kind-hearted son and daughter-in-law. Thank you, but let me think about it. I'll go home for today. I really appreciate it. With that, I left the restaurant. At that point, I couldn't care less about Russ. I wanted to get back at him somehow. I thought about what I could do to help with that, but I couldn't come up with anything. I decided to call my mother-in-law, Martha, and fill her in on what happened. Hello? Martha, it's been a while. Oh, Susan! How have you been? I've been good. Actually, I have something to tell you. I recounted the day's events to Martha. Her initially cheerful voice turned somber as she listened. I'm so sorry, Susan. My own son did something terrible to you. As a woman, it's infuriating. All I can do is apologize. It's not your fault, Martha. Then Martha said something unexpected. Do you think it might have been Russ? What? I saw someone who looked like Russ at the department store with another woman. I didn't think he would have an affair at this age, but maybe it was him. I'll look into it. Thank you. I hung up and immediately contacted a private investigator. The investigation would start in 3 days, based on Russ's usual routine. A week after the investigation began, I received a call. Sure enough, Russ was having an affair. They handed me a report and several photos as evidence, and to my shock, it was a woman Russ had an affair with in the past. I had to wonder if they had kept in touch all along. I called Russ, and together with Martha, confronted him. What's going on? Did you file for divorce already? And why is Mom here? I haven't filed yet, but I need to talk to you. I'm going to sue you for damages. Damages? For what? For having an affair? I haven't had any affair. I showed Russ the photos from the private investigator. His face turned pale. I just ran into her. You expect me to believe you just ran into an old flame multiple times? I haven't met her multiple times. Do you want to look at the dates on these pictures? You've met more than once, so don't lie. Russ fell silent, and that's when Russ just lost it. You're such a nag. Why don't you just leave me already? I'm not paying any alimony, period. That's when Martha raised her voice. Cut the nonsense. Do you even realize what you've done to this family? Act like a father for once. Mom? Help me out here. Help you? You've even damaged my friendship with Susan's mom. You're no son of mine. Don't ever show your face again. Hearing this, Russ slumped his shoulders and agreed to the alimony. So, Russ and I got divorced. Russ had actually broken it off with his mistress once, but apparently they bumped into each other and reignited their affair. Because it was the second time he cheated, I got a hefty alimony. As for Russ, he's drowning in debt, working all hours to pay it back. As for his relationship with the mistress, she wasn't keen on being with a debt-laden man and took off. Russ lost his family, mistress, and money in the whole ordeal. My revenge was a roaring success, and I couldn't be more satisfied. As for me now, I'm living with my son and his wife. I'm feeling the joy every day as new grandchildren have been born. I'm looking forward to a peaceful life with Tom and his family.
My name is Natalie Mims, a 32-year-old woman. My husband, Jake, is 4 years younger than me, 28 years old. We met at our workplace, fell in love, and got married last year. Jake joined the workplace after me. When we first met, Jake had just transferred from another company, and he seemed like a young, somewhat naive guy. I didn't particularly see him as a romantic prospect at first, but things changed the day I came into the office with a tear-stained face after being dumped by my previous boyfriend. Jake took great care of me, buying me coffee, stepping in for me at meetings. I started to see him as a man with a true gentleman's sensitivity. From there, our relationship progressed quickly and we got married about a year after we started dating. The reason I fell in love with Jake was because he's the kind of person who looks out for others and is very compassionate. However, people have many sides to them. Today is Sunday, a day off from work. We should be enjoying a peaceful day as a couple, but we have a major problem now. Her name is Diana Whitestone, a 26-year-old woman. She is my husband's childhood friend. Jake and Diana were next-door neighbors growing up. They were family friends and frequently visited each other's place since childhood. I suppose this is why Diana often comes to our house. Our house is technically owned by my father-in-law, but Jake and I are the ones paying the mortgage. Perhaps that's why Diana drops by so casually, acting as though it's only natural. Diana is also married and lives near her parents' home. Her husband often comes home late from work, which leads to Diana visiting us about twice a week. Today is Sunday, so I'd assume Diana's husband would be off work, but here she is at our place anyway. I wonder if she feels like Jake was stolen from her by me. She frequently brings up stories from when Jake was a child in front of me. Do you remember that trip we took during middle school summer vacation, Jake? I recently found the bracelet we bought as souvenirs in my room. Oh. The one we bought at the souvenir shop, right? You were so fond of it and wore it all the time, even to school, although they weren't allowed at school. The story is about a family trip from their childhood, but she seems to show off the world they shared, full of memories. While Diana discusses these stories with an innocent face, she intentionally avoids eye contact with me when doing so. She often recalls the past, their common teachers in elementary school, stories of playing together at the local park, how Jake taught her basketball. It's as if she's claiming that she knows Jake best. I did ask Jake about it. Don't you think Diana visits too often, Jake? I'd worry if I were her husband. Nah, Diana's always been like this. She used to frequently come to my parents' place, too. There was even a period when she was there every day. Don't worry about it. He told me not to worry, and I couldn't say anything more, but I can't help but worry. Jake is also part of the problem. He always prioritizes Diana. One day, when Diana casually dropped by again, she noticed some cosmetics I had left in the bathroom. It was a brand new toner that cost more than $100. I had just bought it after my bonus was paid out. I'd been intrigued by its good reviews but had hesitated to buy it because it was a bit pricey. I had only used it for 2 days. And Diana noticed that toner. She asked Jake from the bathroom, "Jake, can I have this toner that's sitting here? Toner?" "Sure, take as much as you want." "Yay!" "I'm taking it, then." This is not a joke. I had restrained myself from buying it and had just managed to get it, but now Diana was taking it. Unbelievable. I complained to Jake in a whisper, so Diana couldn't hear. "Why are you letting Diana take my toner without asking me? Come on, it's just a toner. It's no problem, right? That toner is from a high-end brand and cost more than $100. I just got it. Well, then it's even better to give it to Diana." "What does that mean?" I said, and Diana approached us. "What are you whispering about?" "It's nothing." "Right, Natalie?" That's where the conversation ended. I was so upset that I couldn't calm down. I told them I was going out to do some shopping and headed to the nearby gas station. These sorts of things happen quite a lot. Last month, on my birthday, we had plans to go out for dinner. However, on that very day, as we were about to leave, Diana came over. To my astonishment, Jake casually invited Diana, asking her, "Do you want to come along with us, Diana? It's my birthday." Why was Diana coming with us? Why can't it be just the two of us? Moreover, he even asked Diana, "What do you want to eat, Diana? Pick whatever you like," without ever asking me, the supposed star of the day, what I wanted to eat. Diana wanted some pizza, and that's what we ended up having. And just like that, my birthday was over. I thought this was terrible and wanted to cry a little, but I couldn't complain to him in front of Diana, so I persevered. Once Diana had left that day, I tried to complain to Jake. "I have something to discuss with you." "A talk? Can we do it later? I'm going to bed." He brushed me off and headed towards the bedroom. "What? Wait. Listen to me. Today is my birthday. Why did we have to take Diana along with us? And why did you let her decide what to have for dinner?" "Well, it just happened that Diana came over on your birthday." "Did it bother you that much?" "Yes, it's strange. Who takes a female childhood friend along on his wife's birthday dinner? When you married me, you knew you were also accepting my relationship with my childhood friend, Diana. We grew up together, and we're like family to each other. I'm going to bed now. I felt like I was being tricked somehow, but it seemed like he genuinely saw no problem with having Diana along with us for my birthday dinner. Once again, I was left frustrated. Jake and I had planned a vacation to the Bahamas during the summer break. We live in downtown Atlanta, and the Bahamas is less than 3 hours flight away. It was a great destination for us, since we couldn't secure any long holiday. We had been saving some money for this summer trip. I was really looking forward to our trip. Hey, how about trying diving in the Bahamas? After watching a documentary about diving on Netflix, he got interested in going to the Bahamas and started looking more into it. Apparently, there are beautiful diving spots in the Bahamas. I also watched the documentary with him and was captivated by the quiet and beautiful underwater world, uttering, "Wow, so beautiful," many times. I was secretly delighted, thinking that Jake might remember my reaction. Going on a dive in the Bahamas with him, I was even more excited about our trip. Exactly 1 month before the trip, Diana got divorced. As usual, she came to our place and started talking about her divorce. My husband said he wanted a divorce and just left. He's 10 years older than me, but he's like a spoiled boy or something. I don't know if he thinks it's okay as long as he works, but he said he might not be able to come home today, so I stayed at my friend's house. He then made a fuss, saying I was having an affair, and that's why we're divorcing. I thought he was a good husband for you, Diana. He's very mature. Yeah, he was mature. But he was also incredibly boring. Well, if that's the case, it's better you parted ways. Hey, Jake, will you celebrate my birthday for me? I was planning to go on a trip with my husband if I hadn't divorced, but now I have no plans. Diana's divorced? I had a bad feeling about that. Unfortunately, my hunch was right. We're canceling our trip. We're going to celebrate Diana's birthday instead. Jake came back from his parents' house and said that all of a sudden in late July. Hearing that, I felt resigned as I saw this coming. His feelings were no longer with me. So, I replied with a smile. Go ahead, have a good time. I had asked Jake several times about his relationship with Diana. They were just too close to be just childhood friends. Watching how close they were, I directly asked him once, "Are you dating Diana?" In response to that, he replied, "Diana and I are just childhood friends. We have nothing to hide." He often prioritizes Diana, and when I speak against it, he always dismisses me. However, I noticed that there seemed to be some secret between them when they exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking. It was my husband, so I was conflicted for a while, but I decided to hire a detective to investigate possible infidelity. And the results of that investigation reached me yesterday. The result was affirmative. Jake and Diana were having an affair. The day after he said that our trip was canceled, I called in sick at work and went home early. With the documents from the infidelity investigation in hand, I went to talk to both my in-laws and Diana's parents. Honestly, I was very scared of what they might say. Would they calmly acknowledge the wrongdoings of their son and daughter? Or would they emotionally blame me, making the situation even worse? But I had the infidelity investigation results as undeniable evidence. I clenched the envelope containing the documents tightly. As I explained the sequence of events, both my in-laws and Diana's parents were shocked. After a moment of silence, my father-in-law said, "I am so sorry, Natalie. Our son has done something terrible." First, my father-in-law apologized to me. What on earth is he thinking? I am truly sorry, Natalie. We have caused you so much trouble. Diana. She's now having an affair with Jake after getting a divorce because of her affair. What on earth is she thinking? Honey, you have to knock some sense into her. You've always been too lenient with Diana. I was relieved. Both sets of parents were reasonable people. I was glad I had the courage to go and talk to them. They were very angry that their son and daughter had been involved in such an affair. We raised them together like siblings, but we never intended for them to have such an inappropriate relationship, my father-in-law said adamantly. We then discussed how to deal with Jake and Diana, how to make them apologize and reflect on their actions. The plan was put into action the morning Jake and Diana were set to leave for their trip to the Bahamas, at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. On the day of execution, both sets of parents were waiting to ambush them, who were about to board a direct flight to the Bahamas from the airport. Oblivious to this, the two, holding hands and pulling their suitcases, arrived at the check-in counter at the first terminal of the airport. They arrived looking cheerful and lovey-dovey. As they stopped to check the location of the counter on their phone, their parents approached them.
Jake, what's the meaning of this?
Dad, why are you here? I asked you first. I saw you walking hand in hand with Diana. Dad, today's Diana's birthday, and I gifted her a trip to the Bahamas. We're heading there now. The trip is canceled. Jake, it's clear that you're having an affair with Diana. That's not true. Who even told you that? It must be Natalie. Don't believe what Natalie says. Shut up. We've already investigated everything. We all know that you and Diana were having an affair. Now, we're going home. We need to talk. Listen. We're not having an affair, believe me. Diana, shut up. Your shameful acts have truly disgusted me. Are you really our daughter? Jake and Diana remained silent, looking down. They realized that this was indeed a serious situation. Let's go. They obediently followed my father-in-law's lead and returned to their family home in his van. Come on, both of you, get out, urged my father-in-law, and they reluctantly entered the house through the front door. I was waiting alone in the living room. Jake noticed me and started. Natalie. He could not find more words to say. Both Jake and Diana looked at each other and then awkwardly looked down. I hired a private detective to investigate the affair. Once both sets of parents, mine and Diana's, were gathered, I informed the two about the results of the private detective's investigation into their affair. Their infidelity had been ongoing even before Jake and I got married. I figured that Diana married her ex-husband when we had just started dating. Even after our marriage, Jake continued his relationship with Diana. Jake, what on earth were you thinking? If you always liked Diana, you should have married her, my mother-in-law said. I thought it would work out well if I got married too since Diana got married, he replied. What? Work out well? I am flabbergasted. So you married me out of jealousy towards her? Yes, I did. What's wrong with that? This is when I finally learned his true color. I always thought he was someone that had compassion and looked out for others. Jake, do you understand what you're saying? You're not in a position to be defiant. Well, but I like Diana more than Natalie. So it can't be helped. Why haven't you apologized to Natalie yet? You are a grown man, do you have no shame? What now? I never liked Natalie, but I've still been considerate towards her. You idiot! Just shut up. It was quite a terrible story. I was on the verge of tears. I reflected on my lack of discernment, belatedly realizing that I had been living with such a man. And according to the investigation results, to my astonishment, he was also playing around with several women he met on a matching app. When I told them this, Diana angrily confronted him, saying, Wait, what is that about? But according to the investigation results, she also had another affair that caused her divorce. Both of them were at fault. That's what I would like to know, Diana. Diana's ex-husband, Bob, who had been living together until a month ago, appeared from another room. Bob was not initially involved in the plan to punish Jake and Diana. Today is Diana's birthday. Bob came this morning to tell Diana that he wanted to start over with her. They were originally planning to go on a trip for her birthday, but they ended up getting divorced, and he thought she would probably be spending her birthday alone, so he came to ask if they could start over again. What's an affair? I can also be blamed for neglecting Diana because I was always working, which is also why we got divorced. That's why he came to pick up Diana at her parents' house this morning. And there, he ran into her parents who were about to go to the airport, and learned about the affair between Jake and Diana. Bob was a very nice person.
Bob, why are you here?
I came here thinking I wanted to start over with you. I thought you had an affair because I didn't spend enough time with you. But it seems like it was never my fault. I finally get it now. You were never genuine. It's a pity.
No, that's not true, Bob. I don't care about Jake either.
Do whatever you want. I'm going home. She looked as if she had messed up, looked up at the sky, and then sighed and looked down. I had finished explaining all the investigation results. Yet, it didn't seem like Jake and Diana intended to apologize to me. They were rather looking at me with a frustrated expression. That was the end of that day, and my father-in-law said he would contact me later. After all, I was able to divorce Jake. I didn't have a place to live after the divorce, so my father-in-law transferred a condominium to me. It was his way of apologizing for all the mess. He would be making the loan payments from now on, and since the divorce was caused by Jake's infidelity, I was also able to claim damages. Diana was also reportedly asked for additional damages by her ex-husband, Bob. I was finally free from my doubts towards Jake, which had been bothering me since the beginning of our marriage, and I am now living a peaceful life. For now, once my work settles down, I think I will take some paid leave and go to the Bahamas with my parents.
My husband changed me, someone who used to shy away from social interactions. With him, I thought I could be truly happy. Yet, after we got married, he changed. It started with yelling, moved on to shoving, and ultimately, he kicked me while I was sick in bed. This is not the man I married. Love has turned into fear. I want to run away, but I'm scared to do that too. But I know, at the end of the day, it's on me to speak up. Let's break up. My name is Scarlett, 29 years old. I've been married to Daniel for 2 years, and I'm a housewife. I lost my parents at a young age, and the grandmother who raised me passed away when I was in high school. I was bound to be lonely forever. Since my grandmother passed, I had been uncomfortable with relationships. Simple reason, really. It hurts when people leave. That's why I never had a boyfriend or close friends. I had always been on my own. But Daniel was different. He changed all that. He took an interest in me, a rather gloomy person. I'll never know. He asked me out repeatedly. At first, I was honestly annoyed by his persistence. But eventually, I gave in and found myself caught up in his world, realizing Daniel had become the most important person to me. That's how we ended up getting married 2 years ago, and now I'm questioning whether I should stay married, because Daniel changed after we got married. Within a few months into our marriage, he started coming home less and less. He wouldn't even tell me what time he'd be back and started criticizing what I was doing around the house. Why isn't my dinner ready? If I told him I thought he would be late, he'd just sigh and look at me with cold eyes. You're staying home on my dime and can't even manage the housework? What a wife! And just like that, he'd grab his change of clothes and leave the house. That's when I started making dinner every day, even if he wasn't coming home. But on those days, he wouldn't come home for a week. Is he tired of me? Did he see something he didn't like after marrying me? I couldn't stop thinking about it. I don't want the sweet memories I have with Daniel to be a lie. I don't want to be abandoned. I don't want to be alone. My mind was a mess. After living like this for 6 months, I decided something needs to change. I don't want to be a burden on Daniel, and honestly, we're hardly a married couple in this state. When Daniel finally came home, I asked if he was considering a divorce. To my surprise, he looked shocked. That's not it, Scarlett. I've been busy with work. I'm sorry for being cold lately. Please don't talk like that. In a moment of panic, Daniel hugged me, the first time in months. Suddenly, I felt guilty for not considering how busy he was with work. But if he doesn't communicate, I can't understand his struggles. I asked him to keep me in the loop moving forward, to talk to me when something's up. Of course, I promise. Seeing Daniel smile made me feel relief for the first time in a while. For a moment, our troubles seemed like a lie, and life returned to normal. Even though there are still days Daniel doesn't come home, he keeps me updated. Just that alone started to make me happy again. However, 1 year after we got married, it was the day of our wedding anniversary. Daniel stood me up and never showed at the restaurant we had reserved. I was heartbroken, especially since it was our wedding anniversary, and I had never thought he'd cancel. Of course, it was because of work. I tried to be understanding since it was work-related, but it still hurt. I wish you would have told me sooner. When Daniel came back the day after our anniversary and I told him that, he glared at me. Why would you say something like that? Don't you see how hard I'm working? I do appreciate that he works hard, but I wanted him to prioritize our anniversary. When I expressed this, Daniel knocked the food off the table, shattering the dish. The sound echoed in the room. You're so selfish! Are you sure you're not just after my money? Daniel's mom, Olivia, who's my mother-in-law, founded her own company. Daniel and his brother work there. So many have pegged Daniel as the future CEO, and he had warned me that gold diggers had targeted him before. The only one who really loves me is Scarlett, he once happily told me. And honestly, I've never once thought about his family wealth. When I told him this, Daniel looked at me with eyes full of disbelief. Then get a job. You've got too much free time if you're complaining about me. You'd do it if you really loved me, right? Would a job solve this issue? I hesitated, but ultimately nodded. I didn't want Daniel to think I was with him for the money, and more than anything, I didn't want him to leave me. I started to question my sanity. I had come to think that Daniel's anger was a result of something I did. So I found a full-time job. If I tidied up before and after work, Daniel wouldn't complain. Then, one day, Olivia contacted me. Scarlett, I heard you're working now. What happened? Weren't you planning to quit after getting married? I responded with a forced smile, saying I had time to spare. Olivia has always been kind to me from the moment we met. She's a busy CEO, but checks in on me. I vividly remember the time we went shopping right after the wedding. She looked at me like a dream had come true. Daniel used to have a sister, who tragically passed away. Maybe that's why Olivia is extra kind to me. Reach out if you're ever in trouble. Her kind words nearly brought tears to my eyes. I never knew my parents, but I wonder if this is how it'd feel to have a mother. Thinking about it warms my heart a little. I don't want to cause any trouble for Olivia. Supporting her son, Daniel, is my role after all. But that's easier said than done, especially when Daniel doesn't come home. Ever since I started working, there's no longer any money being handed over to me. I mean, we're getting by, but is this really okay? I find myself troubled by the same thoughts over and over. Nothing has changed since back then. Maybe something needs to change. Just when I was thinking this, Daniel came home after a long time. Did you say anything to Mom? I tell Daniel about the call I got. He seemed angry at first, but smiled in relief when he found out I hadn't said anything to Olivia. That's my wife. Make sure to tell Mom we're getting along just fine, okay? I ask Daniel if we're really doing as well as he thinks. I can focus on my job as the future CEO because you handle things so well, Scarlett. Once you're the CEO's wife, I'll treat you to a lavish life. Hearing Daniel so satisfied with that, my heart sinks. I never wanted to be a CEO's wife. I just wanted to build a happy home with you, Daniel. That was enough for me. As I say this, I feel a sharp pain on my cheek. Daniel slapped me. How dare you say that? When I'm working so hard, I married you, so just listen to me. This isn't the Daniel I knew. Tears start to flow. Even my crying seemed to anger him more. Wake me up when dinner's ready, he said, and stormed off to the bedroom. I made dinner while crying that night, and ate a tasteless meal in silence with Daniel. Things went downhill from there. Daniel started coming home more often. Perhaps Olivia said something, but he was cold as ice to me. I've thought about leaving him, but would he agree to a divorce? I didn't know. And what if he hits me again? Ever since that day, Daniel would poke or lightly kick me. I find myself flinching whenever he raises his voice or hand. He even made me quit my job, even though it was his idea for me to work in the first place. Was it just to torment me? I have no idea what Daniel wants from me. My sole focus every day is not to get yelled at by Daniel. Amidst all this, Daniel invited me to Olivia's birthday party. There'll be a lot of people there, so don't embarrass me. Get your hair done on the day and wear something appropriate. Despite the rough times, I was looking forward to a break. Seeing Olivia will be my strength to get through the days, but my luck ran out and I came down with a high fever on the day of Olivia's birthday. I have a fever of 103 and it might even go up. I can't go to the in-laws' house, I tell Daniel. As expected, Daniel yells at me. How could you get sick at a time like this? You're useless! I apologize over and over, but Daniel kicks me repeatedly through the comforter. I'm going ahead. Get ready and come to my parents' house. Despite my high fever, Daniel insists that I should come. I can't go like this. Ignoring my soft murmur, Daniel just leaves the house. If I don't go, who knows what he'll do to me next? Desperate, I put on makeup, fix my hair, and get ready. But every move is slow, and my foggy head just takes too much time. Before I know it, over an hour has passed since Daniel left the house. Daniel calls to rush me, annoyed that I haven't arrived. Get it together! Come to the celebration now! Are you trying to embarrass me? I quickly call a taxi and arrive at the in-laws' house. This should prevent more scolding. But when I get there, the relatives and guests look at me with disbelief. Scarlett, what are you wearing? Even Olivia, who notices me, looked puzzled. I catch my reflection in a large, full-length mirror in the in-laws' house. My makeup and hair are a mess. The word disheveled would be an understatement for how I look right now. I apologize to Olivia, who is giving me a cold stare, and she sighs in disbelief. Scarlett, you should break up with Daniel. To which Daniel chimes in cheerfully. Come on, Mom, give her a break. She just overslept. She didn't even remember it was your birthday. I bow my head at his unhelpful comment. Then a loud slap resonates. I look up to see Olivia has slapped Daniel. What? Why? With a face of disbelief, Daniel stares at Olivia. Daniel, did you force Scarlett to come even though she's clearly unwell? Is that how a person should act? Daniel tries to argue back, but gets slapped on the other cheek before he can speak. I have evidence that you're having an affair. Shall we talk about it? Olivia takes Daniel into the study. I'm led to the guest room by my brother-in-law Andrew and rest there. Whether it's the medicine kicking in or exhaustion, I drift into a deep sleep. When I wake up, it's nighttime. Daniel sits in submission and Olivia looks exasperated in the living room. Olivia quickly fills me in on what happened. Apparently, Daniel had been dating someone even before we got married, and he had plans to marry her. Turns out, Daniel's ex had a kleptomania issue. She even stole from Olivia when she visited their home. Naturally, Olivia banned her from the house and made it clear that they wouldn't support Daniel if he married her. That's why Daniel chose me as his cover-up. He thought I looked like his late sister and that Olivia would like me. If Olivia approved of me, he figured he would also be in her good graces. Olivia didn't say more, but I think Daniel also saw my docile nature as easy to manipulate. Daniel planned to break up with you after he became the CEO. I've only met Scarlett a few times a year, but she seemed less lively each time. That's why I investigated my son and Scarlett. I'm really sorry about Daniel. With that, everything made sense. Daniel never loved me from the start. Surprisingly, I felt more relieved than sad, because I'd already been thinking I should leave. Love had turned into fear after all the shouting and physical abuse. Olivia, I'm leaving him. Olivia nodded. Daniel, you better pay the alimony properly in court. Sign these divorce papers and this pledge. she demanded. Quit my job? And $50,000 in alimony? Are you kidding? Daniel was in disbelief. As I was trying to wrap my head around the fact that I might lose my job, Daniel turned to me for help. I really loved you, Scarlett. I was just meeting my ex because she's relentless. I didn't know what she'd do if I didn't. Trust me. He pleaded through tears, but his tears weren't for me. I still have the bruise you gave me this morning. I could easily get a medical report and file charges. Sign the papers if you don't want to be sued, I warned him. Olivia, unaware of the physical abuse, burst into tears and started hitting Daniel. You're a terrible person! Don't ever come back home. We're done! She yelled. Afterward, brother-in-law Andrew stepped in. Daniel signed the papers, crying. If he regretted it so much, he shouldn't have done it in the first place, I thought. Maybe I also had a part in this for putting up with it for so long. Watching Daniel cry, I vowed never to neglect my feelings again. After the divorce, I focused on moving and job hunting. It was a hectic time. But Andrew helped with finding a new place, and Olivia even referred me to a job. I was being pampered, really. I managed to find a job in the same field as before, and recently got the offer. Of course, I was hired on merit after a proper interview, not because of connections. But ever since, Olivia has been a bit overprotective of me, which worries me a little. Starting a new job while adjusting to a new lifestyle is bound to be challenging for a while. Still, right now, I feel more satisfied and secure than anxious. About a year after my divorce, I happened to run into my ex-husband Daniel loitering near my workplace. I just wanted to talk. He looked awful. His clothes were dirty, and he lacked the energy he once had. Long story short, he'd been dumped by his girlfriend and wanted to get back together with me. I couldn't help but laugh. I then showed Daniel my hand. On my right ring finger was a new ring I just received. I've been dating your brother recently. Not sure about marriage yet, but I do know he's a much better person than you. Plus, he's next in line to be CEO. Daniel had always arrogantly assumed that he, as the eldest son, would take over the family business, but Olivia never considered the irresponsible Daniel as a successor. Being married to you was a struggle, but there's one thing I'm grateful for. Thank you for introducing me to your family. I'm cherished here now. With a smile, I conveyed this to him. Daniel collapsed on the spot. He fell to his knees, sobbing. That was the moment I felt truly glad to have left him. While I still can't contemplate marriage due to my history with Daniel, I've decided to once again trust those who supported me during my toughest times. From now on, I'll live being true to my feelings.
My name is Jennifer. I'm a dedicated housewife who's been married for 20 years. I remarried with my current husband 20 years ago. I was in my first marriage while it was his second, and during our relationship, he confessed that he had a son who is turning 5. I tried to leave several times after that, but in the end, I couldn't part from him and we went ahead and tied the knot. Despite all the struggles, ever since we got married, I have made a point of raising his child as if he were my own. The son was 5 years old when we got married. He did show typical adolescent rebellious behavior, but we never had dramatic exchanges like in the movies where he would yell, "You're not my real mom," or anything of the sort. I believe we built a happy family together. 2 years into our marriage, I became pregnant. We were blessed with a lovely baby boy of our own. Our eldest son, James, was a bit older than his younger brother with a 7-year age gap, but he was still very kind and protective as an older brother. Even though I wasn't his biological mother, I was somewhat apprehensive, but as the old saying goes, better to have the baby than to worry about it. Life has a way of working itself out, as I've come to realize. A few years after, our second son was born. Our eldest son started to enter puberty and began to reject my presence. The trigger was something truly trivial. I wasn't aware of it myself, but our eldest son told me that I treated him and his younger brother differently. I tried to explain to him that it wasn't the case, but he wouldn't listen. Our relationship began to break down like a landslide from that point, and now in his eyes, I am just someone who does the chores around the house. Regardless of whether my son recognizes me as his mother or not, I have been determined to be his mother ever since the day I married my husband. Until the day he becomes an adult and leaves this house, I'm committed to take care of him no matter how much he resents it. I decided to commit to this wholeheartedly. As a result, our relationship worsened as he went through puberty and his rebellious stage. Looking back, I probably should have let things slide and not made any comments, but I just couldn't do that at the time. Now, it's become commonplace for him to call me, "Hey you." When I was doing the laundry or cleaning, he would yell at me furiously, "Don't touch my stuff when I didn't ask you to." He did apologize later, probably realizing how out of line he was, but when I forgave him with a smile, he became defiant again, saying, "In the first place, it's your fault for doing things I told you to stop, lady." I knew then that things were getting out of hand. My husband does try to discipline him, but he's well behaved in front of my husband, so my husband ended up doubting me, saying, "Did James really do that?" I tried recording our interactions to prove it to my husband a few times, but it never worked out, as something always came up or we didn't have any arguments when I was recording. As time went on, our eldest son came of age and decided to leave home. I remember breathing a sigh of relief, thinking that I'd finally made it through. His parting words when leaving the house were, "Finally, I don't have to see strangers' faces." I thought those were harsh words for me, who had been taking care of him every day for 15 years since we first met. He's not a bad kid. Even though I understood this intellectually, my heart couldn't catch up. When our eldest son left the house saying those words, our second son, Richard, who was just entering middle school at the time, looked perplexed and asked, "Why does Big Brother hate Mom so much?" So I thought it necessary to tell my younger son the whole truth as well, and told him about remarrying his father and that his older brother was his father's son from a previous marriage. My younger son seemed shocked at first that his older brother and him were not blood related, but he quietly listened to the end of the story. In the end, he seemed to accept it, saying, "So that's why his attitude towards Mom was weird these past few years." I don't regret marrying our husband, but I began to regret claiming to be the mother of our older son. Maybe there was a way to live together as just housemates? Maybe I didn't have to force him to recognize me as his mother? Once I started thinking about it, the thoughts just didn't stop. A few years after our eldest son moved out, we received a message from him saying, "I will be visiting soon for a marriage introduction." The message was relayed through his younger brother. I hadn't received any direct communication, but I was okay with it because I was getting regular updates about him through my husband and younger son. However, with his marriage on the horizon, we had to do the formal introductions and face each other. After meeting with the parents of the bride-to-be, they left. The room felt awkward because we hadn't seen each other for several years, but the conversation moved to whether or not I would attend the wedding. "I don't think of you as my mother. I don't want you to attend this ceremony." "What? What are you saying? Jennifer's the one who raised you up to this point." "I don't care. I didn't ask for that. Anyway, you remarried without even asking my opinion, and you're trying to tell me she's my mother? I can't accept that." "James, have you been saying such terrible things to Mom all this time? I trusted you." "I've been pretending all along in front of you. I'm severing my ties with this house. I'm being adopted into my wife's family, so I don't need to grovel to you guys anymore." "Have you really never thought of me as your mother, not even once?" I don't know about when I was a little kid, but certainly not in my memory." "I see. I understand." With my husband, who was looking worried behind me, I left the room. I didn't want to cry in front of my eldest son, but when I left the room, I couldn't cry. What had the past 15 years been for? I remembered my eldest son when he was little, when he used to call me Mom and say, "I love you," with a smile. My phone wallpaper was a picture of my eldest son and my younger son when they were small. A picture of my 7-year-old eldest son holding my newborn younger son timidly. If I could go back to that time, I would want to, I thought as I looked at the picture. Those were good times, really. I muttered and decided to leave the house. My younger son is 18, graduating from high school next year, and has mentioned going to a university with dormitories. In effect, I will be relieved of my duties. So I've decided to change my mindset and start enjoying living on my own from now on. That night, I had a talk with my husband about our future, about our eldest son today. "Jennifer, I'm truly sorry I never believed you. I had no idea that our son James could disrespect others in such a way." "No, it's all right now. Perhaps my parenting was also at fault. Even though I thought of him as my own child, I suppose I treated him differently. He told me so himself. I wasn't aware of it myself, but I was taking care of him in my own way." "I know that better than anyone else. You have always taken care of James as if he were your own. I am truly grateful for that." "But it seems that even that was something he didn't want. It's almost laughable, isn't it?" As I made this self-deprecating remark, my husband made a pained face, took my hand, and apologized to me over and over again. Then I told my husband that I would not attend the ceremony as he wished, and that I wanted a divorce because I would be leaving the house as soon as our second son left. I handed him the divorce papers. "Are you serious?" "Of course. I would never joke about something like this." You're right. You are that kind of person. I'm truly sorry for all the pain I've caused you. You don't need to apologize anymore. I have never regretted marrying you, so, okay? Jennifer, I love you from the bottom of my heart. I love you too. Please take care of James and Richard for me. That night, I fell asleep in my husband's arms for the first time since we were newlyweds. I was able to sleep soundly for the first time in a long while, comforted by the faint sound of his heartbeat. Several days passed since our discussion about the divorce. Our second son graduated from high school, and our eldest son's wedding is coming up next week. Our second son was wondering if he should wear his school uniform to attend the wedding, which I found amusing. Noticing me smiling at his preparations for the ceremony, he approached me and started a conversation. Mom, are you really not going to attend my brother's wedding? Yes, he said he didn't want me there, so there's nothing I can do about it. It's his big day. I want him to enjoy it. But Mom, you're the one who raised him with care. It's okay, Richard. There's no need for you to worry about it. Not convinced by my words, my second son kept groaning in frustration. It must have been frustrating for him. He knows the good relationship I used to have with our eldest son. But repairing the relationship is now impossible. I have prepared to leave the house and the divorce is settled. I didn't ask for any division of the property, kept the money I had, and left the house with our second son. The house that was filled with memories of many years spent there. A house that represents half of my life. I left a video message for my second son and left my family behind. A week after I left home, I heard from my younger son that my eldest son's wedding went off without a hitch. I was relieved and asked my younger son about his impressions of the ceremony. Then he replied, "It was a total disaster, seriously." As I had chosen not to attend the wedding in accordance with my eldest son's wishes, his response took me by surprise, stopping my thoughts for a moment. But I managed to regain my composure and asked him what exactly went wrong. For some reason, he started boasting about it. "You remember, Mom, how you were there when we did the initial meet and greet, right?" "Yeah, I remember." "Well, because you weren't at the ceremony, his wife was all, 'Why?'" "I see, I understand." Big Brother was making all sorts of excuses, but his wife suddenly suggested to cancel the ceremony, and her parents went into a frenzy. The ceremony somehow started since everyone was already gathered, but throughout it was a sullen bride and a timid groom. It was quite peculiar atmosphere at the venue. "Is that what happened?" "After the ceremony ended and all the attendees had left, I showed the video message from you, Mom, entrusted to me to my big brother, and then he started crying." "What? He cried?" "Yeah, but seeing that, his wife got even more upset. She said something along the lines of, 'How could you not invite someone who raised you with so much care to the most important event of your life?'" "So, what happened after that?" When I asked, he looked at me uncomfortably and said in a low voice, "They're separated." I was speechless, taken aback by this shocking news. Despite holding back my desire to attend the wedding for the sake of my son, the newlyweds separated shortly after their marriage. In retrospect, I think his wife admired the fact that I raised him as my own, despite having no blood relation. Furthermore, I recall that in the course of our conversation she had said, "I was also raised with great care by my parents, and I would love to build a warm and loving family with your son, just like my parents did." In other words, my son's stubbornness shattered his own happiness. When I heard this, I could hardly think of it as karma. Because he cried after watching my video message. If he still has feelings for me, I couldn't be happier. I immediately contacted my husband and asked him about the couple. With a worried voice, my husband asked for my opinion. "I don't know what to do. Now that it has come to this, I don't know what to say to him." "Don't worry, he's good at expressing his feelings clearly to others, but he might need a little push." "A push, huh? Okay, I'll try it." I don't know what happened after my husband and I talked on the phone, but when my younger son told me with a smile, "They've reconciled," I believed everything would be okay from now on. I was resolved to truly leave them alone this time, and then... "Mom, why are you here? There's something I need to talk about." "With me?" "Yeah, I'm sorry about what I said during the wedding prep. Watching that video message the other day reminded me. I've always thought of you as my mom, really. And you've always defended me saying I'm your son. I'm really sorry." I gently extended my hand to my son crying in front of me, wiping away the tears streaming down his cheeks. I was surprised to see an adult man shedding tears, but I thought that these tears must be expressing all of his feelings. He apologized for the harsh words he had thrown at me. That alone was enough for me. I didn't need anything more. "Thanks for coming. I got the photos from Richard. You looked great. Your girlfriend, Linda, right? She's a kind and lovely girl. Take good care of her, okay? Make her the happiest bride in the world." "Yeah, I absolutely promise. So, Mom? It might be asking a lot, but could you come back home?" "What?" Dad has been down ever since you left. It's like when I lost my birth mother. I can't bear to see it. Your father? I'm really begging you. Hearing my eldest son's words, I decided to go back home. I couldn't believe that he, who told me he loved me, was feeling down like this. Was this a lie told by my eldest son to make me reconcile with his father? I headed home, half doubting, half hoping. When I slowly opened the door and stepped in after a long time, I heard a soft sobbing sound. Jennifer. I gently peeked in, and there was my husband, phone in hand, shoulders trembling as he cried. I was taken aback for a moment, but it would be strange not to say anything, so I called out to him, Robert. His body jolted. He quickly turned towards me. His cheeks were wet with tears, reflecting the sunlight, and he quickly wiped his face and tried to act as if nothing was wrong, saying, What? Is something wrong? I couldn't help but laugh. You know. If I said I wanted to come back here, would you be angry?
Huh?
His surprised voice was cut off as everything suddenly went dark. It took me a moment to realize that I was enveloped in a warm embrace. As I returned the hug and asked, Does this mean it's okay? He repeatedly nodded, saying, Yeah, in a nasal voice. Since then, I reconciled with my husband, and that was the last time I saw him cry. Now, I go on trips with him, have dates, and sometimes go out with my eldest son and his wife, spending my time happily. I owe all this happiness to my daughter-in-law, Linda. I'm truly grateful.